Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be starting a new series where I go through and I frame some music prints that I've gathered from either promotions or from going to concerts. And I'm going to do one from the very beginning, and then I'm going to probably do one when I get towards the end. I'm starting off with using some reclaimed oak flooring that I've been gathering for a while. So here I am just putting it up in a clamp and pulling out the nails. There's not a whole lot that you can do with this, so this is like the perfect project for this type of wood. Once I get all the nails pulled out though, I'm going to need to remove all these grooves that are on the back. So over to the planer they go. They're starting out at about 3/4 of an inch, and I end at about 5/8. So it doesn't take too much off, but just a few passes through gets those grooves off. I run it through the other side and get the finish taken off, and I got some nice oak boards afterwards. After that, I go over and I cut off the groove side so that I have a straight edge, and then after that I will go through and make two different parts to make my frames. I do a 1 3/4 piece, and then I will end up going back and doing a 3/4 piece, and you can see that pile over there to the side that I've accumulated doing this. Once I have those two pieces, I put a dado stack on my table saw, and I cut a dado 1/4 of an inch from where the face of my frame will be, and that will be where I will be able to insert the 3/4 inch piece that I cut. So you'll see here when I do the glue up what I'm talking about. Here though, I'm going to show you that dado on the other side. There you go. Nothing complicated. Once I'm done running all these dados, I go through and I got to sand the inside parts of both the pieces. And this is because once they're glued together, you can't really get in there with a sander. But here I have my two pieces. I run a bead of glue on that inside groove, insert that 3/4 inch piece into that groove, and then just to get it nested in there very well, I'm going to use a handful of clamps just to be able to make sure that I have an even reveal all the way across this piece. If you don't clamp it in, you can have some uneven spots. Once I'm done clamping though, there'll be a little bit of glue squeeze out, and I just go back with a wipe here in a minute and get all that squeeze out cleaned up. It's easier now than later. You can see by my setup there, I'm in for the long haul to do a bit. Once those are all together, I'm going to cut the backer boards out. I'm just using what I have, so this is some 1/8 inch, maybe some 1/4 inch board that I have, and I'm just cutting it to 1/8 bigger than the print itself. I don't want it to be super tight, but once I have those backers cut out, I go back and I just cut some 45s on my frame pieces and line them up on the boards, and then you'll see that I draw a line, and then I get a 45 and draw where I need to cut, and then from that point I will just do this on all the corners until my frame pieces are all cut, just like so. And from here, we're going to glue up this frame. Now, I just orient them the best way that they look, make sure all my corners are tight. I have this clamp that's like a ratchet strap with some corner holds on it. And you kind of see here me getting it set up. This is a very primitive setup, but I really enjoy it. Once I get it set up, I grab my pieces and I butter those ends, and I'm using some quick and thick glue. It's a little bit easier, a little less mess once I get those corners all put together. But I do that on all 8 corners, and then I will get this clamp set up with those blocks on the corners and ratchet it here in a second. Very, again, simple process. I know there's some other clamps out there that you can get, but this is just the one that I've had for a long time, and it works for this application really good. Once I get those all done, I got to make sure that those inside corners are flat, because again, trying to sand those down would be hard. But then I'll just let that sit for a minute and let that glue cure, I'm a big fan of splines on the corners, so here I am setting up my spline jig to be in the center of that frame, and I just put those corners down in that jig and run it across the blade of the table saw. So I'm just going to have a 1/8 inch spline. That's to kind of help keep this together. Here you can see that slit that I cut in it. Off camera, I cut some splines just out of some maple. Usually people will do contrasting wood, but this will be getting a stain on it at the end, and so it really doesn't matter what wood you use here, or I used, I guess, in this case. Once I get these splines in, I'll let those sit for a moment, and then I go back and I just cut mine off with a handsaw. You can use a bandsaw. I've just gotten really used to using my pull saw to cut these off. Once these are cut off, I'm going to finish sanding everything. So I will sand the tops so that all those corners are smooth and flush to each other, and then I will sand the sides to make sure that they are also flush and smooth to each other. I really had to think about how I want these to look, because I probably have about 40 or 50 different posters that I will be framing over the year, and I want the same finish on all of them. So I'm going to be using black Indian ink to do all my frames, because I bet that throughout this process I'll have different species and woods that I'll be using, and I want to have at least some sort of consistent finish, and I think this Indian ink will give me that. I'm just doing a wipe on with a brush method and a little wipe off after, and I highly recommend putting some sort of finish over this. I am doing a spray on poly, but you could use any sort of finish. Just do something over that Indian ink so it doesn't get on your walls. And as I said, I'm doing about 40 or 50 of these posters, so I am buying large sheets of plexiglass and cutting them down to size, and that's what I'm doing here. And then on the corners, to hang it on the wall, I just got these framers hooks. I don't know exactly what they're called, but I use them quite a bit when I do frames. Just a couple nails and on the sides, and it gets it in place. And I have one in each corner to make sure that it sits on the wall flush and level. So here I am putting it all together, taking that protective film off the glass, and then once I do that, I'll put the print on and then the backer on. And I don't imagine that I'll ever actually take the prints out of this, but you can see that I have this framer stapler, and it just shoots one of those tabs into the side of the frame there and holds that backer down. This thing is amazing, absolutely love it. And here's the reveal. So thank you for watching. I'm going to, as I said, do another one of these at the end and see how much my process has changed. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit all the buttons, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.